All right. I'm Joe Turner, and this is the City Manager Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. It is the most influential local government podcast in America. I'm very proud to say that. In year one, I had over 200 Apple reviews and ratings, just a phenomenal number, more ratings and reviews than other podcasts have had in their entire existence. And we had nearly 100,000 downloads. So thank you very much again. This is year two now. We're going to keep it rolling. And man, if you're just tuning in and you were not paying attention to the news that broke last week, boy, are you going to be in for a surprise. ICMA CEO Marc Ott announced his retirement last week. And man, when on June 26th, around 12:32 or something like that, whenever the ICMA email went out, I was getting bombarded with, my comms lit up like a Christmas tree. I had so many people texting and calling me at the same time. It was unbelievable. I'd be talking on the phone to one city manager, and I'd get bing, 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 all the text messages and LinkedIn alerts popping in on my phone. So that's all everyone was talking about last week, and we're going to unpack that a bit more in this episode. And I kind of predicted this. If you guys go back and listen to episode 19, the Sound of Silence episode, way back in October. That was an episode about James Freed's situation. It was the third one in the installment. I predicted that there were big changes were going to be coming to the ICMA. Now, I'll be honest, I thought they were going to come sooner than this. I didn't think it was going to take this long because at that time, it was the James Freed was going to be getting a trial date set. However, the ICMA attorneys threw a Hail Mary sometime in, I think, late October, early November, something like that, and basically tried to get the case moved to another court. I talked about this a little bit in a previous episode, so I won't get into it here. Be that as it may, the ICMA attorneys failed in their attempt on this Hail Mary, and so it dragged it out for a few more months, and that's why a few weeks ago I announced how James Freed had won in court, and the ICMA had lost, and therefore that meant that a jury trial's coming. So I kind of thought that the shakeup was going to happen in response to that sooner, with Marc Ott being ousted. Now, they're saying it's a retirement, but it's really an ousting, and we'll talk more about that. The other major announcement that I want to share with you guys all, and we're going to unpack it a little bit more in this episode, is that James Freed actually has a trial date. So the judge in the James Freed case, James Freed, he's filing the defamation lawsuit against the ICMA. So these two issues are very, very much inextricably linked here. You got CEO Marc Ott retiring, and you also have James Freed, the judge in the James Freed case, setting a trial date for October 29, 2024. I will tell you guys that in preparation for this podcast episode, I re-listened to episodes 17, 18, and 19 of my podcast because it's been a while, right? That's back in late September, early October. And man, I've been following this case obviously very closely, more closely than just about anybody else except James Freed. And I re-listened to those episodes. It just boggled my mind how much I forgot has transpired in this case regarding James' situation with the ICMA. I would highly encourage all of you listening to go back and re-listen to episodes 17, 18, and 19 because they all have little nuggets in there. And if you haven't listened to any of those episodes, then you should go back and listen to them for the first time because they're very important. I'm going to unpack that a little bit more again in this episode. But those are the two major announcements we're going to be discussing. Marc Ott's retirement announcement, as well as the James Freed trial date that's going to be coming up in October. Very important issues facing the city and county management community, and they're linked. You can't get away from that. So before we get to those two items on this episode, I want to do a couple house cleaning items. First off, I want to give you an update on the American Association of Municipal Executives. Things are going fantastic. People are signing up. I've been really encouraged and motivated, buoyed by the excitement and energy communicated to me by those who are signing up. It's just been an amazing couple of weeks. We officially launched for registration to membership on June 17th, so it's literally been 2.5 weeks now. And man, I'm just blown away by the reception we're getting. So if you want to be a part of the American Association of Municipal Executives, you have until July 15th to sign up to become a founding member. Founding members will be locking in founding member discounts. Founding members are entitled to early and exclusive access to future offerings that we will have. And there's going to be other perks that only founding members will get because I'm super grateful and super appreciative of the fact that you're taking a shot on me, that you're putting your faith and trust in what we're doing here with the AAME. And so if you're a founding member and you want to be in on the ground floor of this historic once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, if you want to put your fingerprint on the city-county management profession, if you want to impact public administration and you want to help build this organization from the ground up, you need to sign up today and be a part of it. because it's going to expire on July 15th. And most likely after July 15th, we're going to be raising the membership cost. So yeah, I mean, if you want to get in now. Like I said, go to aame.org or go to community.aame.org to sign up. If for whatever reason something is holding you back from signing up, it could be a fiscal year issue. I've had a couple of those. And you want to be a founding member, you need to reach out and contact me. Do not let some sort of technicality or some sort of issue hold you up from getting signed up. Reach out to me. Let's have a phone call. Let's have a text conversation, whatever it needs to be to get you squared away. Because if you want to be a founding member, I want you to be a part of the organization, okay? We all do. So get in touch with me if there's something holding you back from signing up today. Got some really cool news related to the AAME. Penny Thompson, the Caribou, Maine city manager, she is looking for an assistant city manager. And to our knowledge, this is the first ever job description that has referenced the American Association of Municipal Executives in it. So shout out to Penny Thompson, who's looking for an assistant city manager up there in Caribou, Maine. I will link to the job announcement in the show notes. And she's a founding member. So very, very grateful for her for mentioning AAME in the job description. And I do know she's looking for an ACM. So if you're looking to start your career, if you're looking to jump into the profession, if you're looking to put your career into overdrive and you want to pursue an ACM opportunity, I would highly encourage you to reach out to Penny Thompson up in Caribou, Maine. Another exciting piece of news I want to share with you is that the American Association of Municipal Executives got its first media hit related to the Tybee Island Baker Tilly city manager search in Georgia. So we put out a press release, and then a couple of days later, we had some earned media on that front. Again, putting the pressure on Baker Tilly, holding them accountable, and we're going to continue to do that. We are going to use earned media and traditional media in ways that you've not seen used before when it comes to professional organizations or associations in the city, county management sphere. And we are going to put the pressure on people. We're going to hold people accountable. We're going to be educating elected officials with our press releases and so forth and so on. So we're going to do a lot of exciting stuff on the earned media front. I'm going to put some of my skill set to use there. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean when I talk about educating local elected officials and the public, as well as advocating on behalf of city managers and public sector executives when it comes to issues that are important to us and our profession. One more final thing before we get to the episode. I want to give you a quick update on Daniel Rosemond. I had a great conversation with Daniel about a week or so ago. We connected. The reality is he got knocked down in a recent court decision. The appeals court, they ruled against him. They are fighting it. His attorney's fighting it, and they're going to try to get that reversed. But make no mistake, it was a tough day for the Rosemond household. Daniel obviously been under a lot of pressure with respect to that decision, but I will tell you that his faith in his Lord Jesus Christ is strong. He's devout. He's him and his wife and his family, they're continuing to pray, and we're hoping for better things, obviously, on this appeal. So if you are a believer and you would like to send some prayers up for Daniel, please do so. If you're not a believer and you want to send some well wishes his way, please do so. Don't be afraid to reach out and message him or text him and let him know that you're thinking about him and his family. I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm not 100% positive, folks. Daniel Rosemond lives in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And if you are in that region in the public sector and you want to reach out and connect with him, you should do so. Also, if you're in the public sector and you have a potential job opportunity at the senior level, department head or something above that, and you think that he might be a good fit, man, give him an offer. I think Daniel would be interested in coming back. I've kind of talked to Daniel, obviously, since he's been on the podcast, and obviously he's been going through it with this court case and what have you. But I get a sense that he still has a hunger and desire to serve the people, the public. So if you have a senior level vacancy in your organization, you think that he might be a good fit, you should reach out to him, see if he'd be interested. And on that note, we're going to get to the rest of the episode, and we're going to get into ICMA CEO Marc Ott's retirement, as well as James Freed's trial date that's coming up in October. Two issues that are very important to the city and county management profession that are inextricably linked. So let's dive in. All right, let's turn our attention to Marc Ott's retirement. And when I say retirement, you should understand that I'm using air quotes, right? Because I don't believe it was retirement at all. I have a very reliable source who's been very spot on with the information they've been giving me up to this point that indicates that Marc Ott was pushed out and that he was, in fact, going to be terminated. but that he was able to negotiate a retirement and save face. I'll leave it for you guys to decide. You tell me, do you think somebody who has a cushy job running the ICMA, that gets to work from home in Austin, gets paid to commute back and forth, has their travel expenses paid for, is getting paid $600,000 a year, do you think they give up that job to quote unquote spend more time with family? Everyone knows that quote unquote spend more time with family is code for I'm being terminated, but we're all trying to save face here, right? I mean, who's buying this? No one's giving up a $600,000 a year job. The ICMA CEO job is not a very difficult job. Let's be honest here. It's very cushy. And the truth of the matter is the executive board missed a golden opportunity to help repair the damage that's been done and rebuild the reputation and credibility of this organization. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But before we do, I want to read a couple of snippets from this ICMA email announcement. It says, quote, "The ICMA Executive Board has formally accepted the retirement of Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director Marc Ott. After serving as CEO and Executive Director for nearly 8 years, Marc is retiring to spend more time with family and pursue other interests that he's passionate about." It goes on to say that, quote, "Marc's leadership helped advance professional local government worldwide, and his commitment to values, ethical management, leadership, global engagement, and community betterment leaves an indelible mark on ICMA. Under his guidance, ICMA has seen remarkable growth and progress during an extraordinary period that included successfully leading and serving our members through the global pandemic. His tireless efforts have elevated ICMA's mission. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for his service," end quote. Let's dissect this second paragraph a little bit about Marc's record as the ICMA CEO, okay? Because I think this deserves a little bit of scrutiny. In this paragraph, they cite the advancement of professional local government worldwide under his leadership. I don't know about you guys, but I don't see it. I don't understand why the ICMA is so invested in international outreach. I don't see why it spends so many resources on international outreach, and they get so little in return. So the Oregon City County Management Association last week actually had a presentation up, representative from the ICMA. I have the slide deck. They put a presentation together that shows that there are only 180 international voting members in the ICMA. Let me repeat that. There are only 180 international voting members, and of that 180, more than 130 are in Canada. So in the ICMA, there are only 50 international voting members in the entire organization that live outside of North America. How is that some sort of accomplishment? Now, I don't know. Maybe 8 years ago, there was 150 or 120. I don't know. But 180 international voting members is some sort of accomplishment on the part of the ICMA CEO. I'm not buying it. And then it goes in and talks about ethical management and values. Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Does anybody want to mention Jessica Cowles or Martha Perego or Ray Beret under CEO Marc Ott's leadership? You know, you got Ray Beret, who's worked with him since he was the city manager in Austin. Okay, Ray Beret is an ICMA member going back to 2009. I submitted an ethics complaint against him because he has campaign donations to Democrat candidates and PACs going back to prior to 2009 and for many years on after that. And apparently Marc Ott never knew about it, didn't know anything about those campaign contributions. And then even when he was brought to his attention, when I filed my ethics complaint against him back in October of 2023, nothing happened to Ray Beret. No disciplinary action, no punishment whatsoever. Ray Beret is just allowed to make campaign contributions in violation of Tenet 7. He's an ICMA member. He's the second highest ranking ICMA staffer donating money to political candidates and PACs, and there's no consequence on that. Okay? So, yeah, real ethical. Let's go on to Jessica Cowles and Martha Perego. Martha Perego, we all know about the political vendetta she launched with her and Jessica Cowles against James Freed in this whole public censure. She was not even supposed to be involved in the public censure, the third and final investigation where they finally got James Freed, right? She wasn't supposed to be involved in that. But if you go back and listen to episode 17, James Freed mentions that Martha Perego sent an email to Jessica Cowles talking about how James Freed should not be in the profession, essentially greenlighting Jessica Cowles to go after James Freed. Now, how is it ethical to have Jessica Cowles investigating James Freed not once, not twice, but 3 times? 3 times. Marc Ott allowed Jessica Cowles to investigate James Freed, even though there was a blatant conflict of interest between James and Perego, who she directly reports to. And on top of that, there were issues between James Freed and Jessica Cowles because Freed recorded that very first phone call conversation that we talk about in episode 18, right? The 28-minute phone conversation on the very first ethics complaint, supposedly. And Jessica was not happy about being recorded in that phone call. So in that very first ethics complaint, let's go back to November 2018, right? That's when James Freed wrote the letter to Martha Perego and CC'd Marc Ott asking her to change the Twitter handle or stop using the ICMA Twitter handle to be liking partisan political comments and candidates and what have you. Marc Ott referred that letter that James Freed wrote to the CPC, the Committee on Professional Conduct, which triggered some sort of investigation, which then put it into the lap of Jessica Cowles. Now, if you're Marc Ott and you're referring to the CPC, why would you not make sure that Jessica Cowles wasn't involved in any way with the investigation of James Freed on that first ethics complaint? It makes no sense. You're going to allow the underling, the person who's directly reporting to the ethics guru, Martha Perego, to investigate the person who allegedly filed the complaint against her, even though that was bogus, right? But that's considered ethical? You have Marc Ott sitting through depositions, right? Back in roughly June or July of 2023, Marc Ott, Jessica Cowles, Martha Perego, and others sat through depositions under oath, right? Where they had to be subject to the questions of James Freed's attorneys. And Marc Ott knows what's in those depositions. James Freed referred to some of those instances in those depositions where he talked about how Jessica Cowles lied in a staff report to the CPC about James Freed's conduct. And when questioned about it under oath in the deposition, she couldn't explain why her report didn't match reality, right? Because James Freed had recorded the phone call and her report did not match what happened in that phone call. James Freed talks about how Marc Ott was told that Martha Perego was involved in that third and final investigation when she was supposed to be completely hands-off. So if Marc Ott is so ethical and so committed to the values of the organization, why is he allowing two ethics staffers who have a blatant conflict of interest to go and prosecute cases against a city manager they do not like? And then finally, even if he didn't know about it then, which he should have known about it because he's the CEO of the organization, and he also triggered the first whole ethics complaint anyways when he sent the letter that James Freed had wrote to the CPC, why didn't he do anything after the depositions were released? When him and the rest of the ICMA got their hands on the depositions and he knows what's in there, he knows what his own staffers testified to under oath, why weren't there any consequences on that? But somehow we're talking about ethical management and values? It says that under his guidance, ICMA has seen remarkable growth and progress during an extraordinary period. Well, I'm not sure about the remarkable growth. Yes, the membership has gone up apparently. I don't know. I haven't seen the last two annual reports, so I'm not sure exactly how those numbers compare on a year-over-year basis. But yes, membership is up since he became CEO. Does anyone have a breakout of where that membership growth came from? Has it been growth across all demographics? Or is that growth in the management analyst ranks? Is that growth in the department head ranks? Has the growth in membership increased with the city and county managers? What about ACM, DCMs? Have those numbers gone up? Where is the growth supposedly coming from? Where is the growth coming from? And are there any areas where growth has declined? The ICMA doesn't break out these numbers. They don't provide this granular detail, so you can't really tell if it's smoke and mirrors on where the growth's coming from, right? If you have a bunch of city managers who normally would pay, $1,000 to $1,200 a year for ICMA dues, and they're being replaced by management analysts and department heads who are paying a couple $100 a year, well, that's not the same, is it? I don't think it's the same. But no one really knows what's going on. There aren't any metrics, and I don't want to belabor the point on the previous episode where I talked about the case for terminating Marc Ott, but we don't really have any metrics for evaluating his performance, do we? It's all smoke and mirrors. So on what metrics did Marc Ott really improve the organization? It talks about advancing professional local government worldwide. What does that mean? 180 members? 180 voting members in the entire organization. Wow, okay. Commitment to values and ethical management? Laughable. Global engagement? Okay, I don't even know what that means. Global engagement. And here's the thing, lest you guys get confused or whatnot, like I'm not even super upset that they didn't fire Marc Ott, that they're allowing him to hang on. I think they should have made the decision to fire Marc and started anew and sent a message to the membership that they're trying to fix things and take corrective action. But instead, they've tacitly endorsed this behavior. They've tacitly endorsed his leadership. Obviously, they're praising it. And he's still in control. So instead of getting rid of him and being able to blunt the criticisms I can levy against the organization for things I do not like under his leadership, it's all fair game still. Total mistake on their part. There's a lot of talk about ICMA ethics and transparency. Well, if he's truly retiring, then does Marc Ott really have a severance package coming his way? Because I've been told by numerous people that he does have a severance clause and that he is going to be paid out severance if he's not employed by the organization until June of 2025, right? So the supposed story is that he's retiring and he will be retiring in a year. They're going to start the search to replace him immediately, which means that if they find someone to replace him before June of 2025, he's going to be let go. And then he would collect a severance at that point. That's what I'm being told. You guys are the ICMA members. Does anyone care to ask? Does anyone think that you as an ICMA member have a right to know whether or not the CEO has a severance clause in place and whether or not it has been triggered through this whole process? Because if you're retiring to spend time with your own family, right? If you're retiring for family reasons and you're going to be retiring a year from now on your own volition, then why do you need a severance? And let's talk about this transparency some more. So you have ICMA staffers going to these state conferences that were happening last week, and nobody mentioned anything about the planned retirement that's supposedly been in the works for a while. Nobody, to my knowledge, no ICMA representative freely and voluntarily shared with their state conferences that the CEO of the organization was on the verge of retiring. In fact, what happened is, to my knowledge, the only place that was even revealed before the conference ended, and I could be wrong, was in Oregon. And you have an ICMA field director who's literally on stage at the time the email goes out announcing that Marc Ott is retiring. And there was never any inclination, there was never any iota, right, that these staffers that work for the ICMA were ever going to freely and voluntarily communicate to the people that are attending these conferences, right, to their own membership, that the CEO of the organization was planning to retire. What happened was, in Oregon, the ICMA staffer was on stage too long, and the email went out, and therefore the question immediately was raised because she had not finished her presentation yet. And then she was forced to answer a question that she didn't think she was going to have to answer. Now, why in an organization like the ICMA, where transparency is supposedly a thing, why aren't ICMA staffers actually proactively communicating to members at state conferences that the CEO is retiring? Why is the release seemingly strategically planned to go out after all the conferences have completed, except they made the mistake with Oregon? They should have waited another hour. Does that make any sense? I got to tell you, folks, a lot of members of the ICMA that I talk to are pretty frustrated with the idea of transparency under the ICMA, right? I've had members express concern about the James Freed case. I brought this up in the case to terminate Marc Ott episode, where I asked, doesn't the organization have an obligation to communicate to its members that it's being sued by a member? I mean, don't you think that the ICMA has an obligation to share that information proactively with its membership? That, hey, heads up, we're being sued by one of our own here. I would think that's something that should be communicated, but nobody knew anything about it. And then somebody I talked to recently said, well, shouldn't that information be revealed in an audit? If you go onto the ICMA annual report page, where they have not updated the annual report since 2022, if you go back a few years, they used to update the audit. They used to do an annual audit and post it online. And basically, since Marc Ott was hired as the CEO, they stopped putting the audits online. Has anyone seen an audit? Because the most recent audit for the 2023 fiscal year should have shown that you had the lawsuit pending with James Freed, right? Because he filed it in the fall of 2022. So it was ongoing. I have people asking about where are the audits at? How come there's no communication about the James Freed case to membership? Why is the Marc Ott retirement announcement saved until the end of conferences when they're all done and nobody has a chance to really ask the questions of staff? Where's the information on the severance clause? Where are the annual reports? You know, something that's also really interesting. Did you guys know that the ICMA board meeting agendas are not posted ahead of time? I didn't realize that until recently. Apparently, the ICMA board meeting agendas do not get posted until after the fact. And did you also know that the minutes that are released are not actually the real minutes? They are summary minutes. So a source has told me, very reliable source, has told me that it is true that the ICMA at the March executive board meeting did take action to provide indemnity insurance or whatnot for the executive board members because they're scared now, because they've been woken up to the fact that as a result of the vote on James Freed and the defamation lawsuit, that executive board members are at risk of being personally liable if James Freed wins this lawsuit. So if you're on the executive board and you are concerned about your personal liability if this thing goes to a jury trial, right? And there's a $10 million settlement or judgment against the ICMA, I don't think they have insurance that's going to cover $10 million, right? So where does James Freed go to collect the rest of the money? Now, if you're an executive board member and you have personal liability, you probably have an incentive to try to settle this thing as quickly as possible now, and to try to make sure that it's within the scope of whatever your insurance coverage is, right? So you don't have any out-of-pocket personal liability. But be that as it may, how come at the March executive board meeting, the ICMA did not report out in the minutes that any action was taken on this insurance? And I'm told that the organization has purchased or is in the process of purchasing insurance for the executive board members. Why isn't the ICMA being transparent when it comes to their board meeting agendas and the action is taken in their minutes? And then finally, when it comes to transparency, I have people who are expressing concern about the search process. There's concern that some of the same people that were involved in the last search process when it came to hiring Marc Ott are going to be involved in this one, that a committee's already been formed. And I have members saying, hey, take a beat here. Why are you all moving so fast? If he's retiring in 2025, a year from now, why are all these steps being taken right now so quickly without getting any involvement from the membership? Why isn't the membership being engaged? Why isn't the ICMA, why aren't the ICMA leaders actively engaging with the membership to get feedback on the search process? So you have the president who's already formed a search committee, apparently, of the executive board, and you have individuals who have already announced that are going to be participating in this, right? Staffers that were involved in or staffers or former member or executive board members who were involved when Marc Ott was hired are going to be involved in this process. And so you got members just saying, hey, why aren't the membership being engaged? And, it's kind of funny because whenever you look at ICMA's posts on LinkedIn, they're always talking about community engagement. In fact, I went back and looked, and I think over the last month, they've had a dozen articles mentioning community engagement in some fashion. Now, obviously, it's mentioning community engagement from the perspective of a city manager getting engagement in their own community, but I had to laugh. So 2 months ago, the ICMA put up a post referring to Tenet 9 of the Ethics Code. And it reads, how do you encourage your organization's communications with community members? Share your best practices here and comment below. And then it has a picture of Tenet 9 that reads, keep the community informed on local government affairs and encourage and facilitate active engagement and constructive communication between community members and all local government officials. And yet, I hear from ICMA members all the time that there's no engagement with their own membership, that there's no communication, that none of the members know what the hell's going on, and that a lot of things that the ICMA does is opaque or a mystery. But many members have told me that they would like to see a thorough, comprehensive, detailed survey of the membership so that the leadership can get a better understanding of where the membership is truly at on these issues. Because frankly, a lot of members truly believe that CEO Marc Ott, the executive board, and the ICMA staff have no clue how the membership truly feels. And they feel that they have no clue about what issues are of concern for the city and county managers who are members of the organization. I mean, I'm looking at another post here from 2 months ago on LinkedIn. It says, residents disengaged? Rebuild trust with better communication strategies. Join OpenGov Inc.'s free webinar and learn how to make data accessible, simplify resident requests, and increase transparency. Register today. Maybe the ICMA Executive Board should take OpenGov's own webinar. Did they watch it? Are they following any of the practices? At the end of the day, the ICMA Executive Board truly squandered an opportunity to reestablish trust and confidence in the organization by its membership. They squandered a golden opportunity to signal that things were going to truly change and be different. Now we're only left to wonder what is going to happen next. Is it just going to be more of the same? Are they just going to hire somebody else in the mold of Marc Ott? Is this all just lip service? Is this just all window dressing? Is the executive board truly going to take steps to demonstrate serious changes and a change in direction? Or is the executive board going to truly demonstrate that they've got the message and that they're going to make significant changes with the new incoming CEO, whoever that's going to be? I got to be honest, guys. I'm not super optimistic. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they do make some serious changes. But, when you look at Marc Ott's leadership, the organization's been run in a very mediocre fashion. I know some people are going to maybe think I'm being too mean when I say that, but I think it's true. When I recounted all the metrics at the last podcast that I did on Marc Ott, the metrics are not great, right? Show me the metrics that you think have improved. I'd love to see them. There's no staff accountability, mediocre work product there. You look at, again, Jessica Cowles, Martha Perego. Not only are they not really disciplined or chastised or punished at all, they are rewarded. Jessica Cowles gets a promotion. Martha Perego gets an award named after her. And this is all after the depositions have been completed. So I want you all to remember this. This is all very important. I want you to judge Marc Ott. This is something that you can't ignore, guys. Marc Ott allowed certain things to happen and endorsed. The reality is that Marc Ott, even after he had read the depositions, even after he had given his own deposition where he was challenged about certain things and admitted that he had no idea certain things were going on, he did not act and take steps to fix it. He did not act and take steps to make it right. Every step of the way, the ICMA has behaved poorly or unethically. You got to remember, this organization was forced by a judge. They were a motion to compel, right? Remember? To turn over documents that were not being turned over to James Freed during the discovery period. James Freed's attorneys had to go to court to get documents, to get a judge to say, hey, turn them over or else. Under Marc's leadership, one of our peers has been run through the ringer, and there's been no consequence for it. And it just rubs me the wrong way to see Marc Ott sent out with a glowing retirement letter praising him for all he's done, and we just gloss over the fact that one of our peers is fighting for their career and their reputation, and I believe he's going to win. So we'll see how it all plays out. On that note, let's turn it over to the second part of this podcast episode, and that is the trial date that James Freed was assigned. So James Freed's trial with the ICMA, the defamation lawsuit, is going to court. October 29th, 2024 is the date of the trial. That's when it's going to start. And I got to tell you, folks, things are going to start to get real. Things are going to start to get real now because I'm going to start ratcheting it up. I'm going to start ratcheting up my content when it comes to exposing what the ICMA has done to James Freed with these bogus ethics complaints and investigations. And the ICMA needs to be exposed. So as we start moving towards the trial here, I'm going to start releasing information on the website. Up to this point, I've shared almost everything on a podcast or on LinkedIn, right? And LinkedIn, as you guys know, is like posts, they fall off after a week or two. Nobody sees it. You can do a hashtag, but it's hard to find stuff. And I need to put this information all in one repository, right? One place, broken down in a structured, organized fashion so everybody can read the case that James Freed has against the ICMA, and we can expose the ICMA for what it did under Marc Ott's leadership, under Jessica Cowles and Martha Perego's tenure, and we can start highlighting it so that you, the reader, you, the listener, can have a place to go and see the documents with your own eyes in an easy to read place, easy to track. As I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast episode, I encourage you guys all to go and re-listen to episodes 17, 18, and 19 of this podcast. I am going to, starting next week, I hope my plan is by this time next week, I will have released part 1 of my summary of the James Freed versus the ICMA lawsuit story, okay? And I'm going to put that over at the citymanagernews.com website. I'm going to create a special page for it, and I'm going to start rolling out everything in detail in a series of releases so that you guys can track it and see it with your own eyes, okay? I'm going to put everything out there. Everything out there. I want every one of you who are listening to me right now to understand something. The ICMA executive board members who voted to publicly censure James Freed must be held accountable. The ICMA executive board members who got elected to the board last year, who have been on this board now for a year or almost a year, they have all had an opportunity to read the depositions, to read Jessica Cowell's staff report to the CPC committee. They've had their opportunity to do their due diligence. They are going to be held accountable. And the new executive board members who are going to be seated at the conference, right, in a couple months, I don't think they've had access to this information yet. I don't know if they're allowed to have access to the information or not. But they are going to be held accountable at that point in time. And I would hold them accountable now in the sense that they should be having some positions or communicating to the membership how they feel about certain things that have happened over the last couple of years with respect to ethics investigations and the weaponization of the ethics code. When you are elected to the ICMA executive board or you are an ICMA executive board member, you are in effect in a quasi-political position, right? It's similar to being elected to a city council, elected to a Senate seat, a House of Representatives seat. You are accountable to your membership, but you're only accountable if the membership holds you accountable. So if you are listening to this podcast and you are an ICMA member, it is your obligation to start asking questions not only of those who are on the executive board today, but those who are on when they voted to censure James Freed, and those who are about ready to come on because they've been elected but not seated yet. All those individuals are accountable to you, the member of the ICMA. It is your responsibility to hold them accountable. You don't need to wait for a lawsuit to play out in court in order to get involved and hold your executive board members accountable. You can call up your executive board members and you can say, hey, have you read the deposition? I know you can't tell me what's in the deposition, or I know you're not going to tell me what's in the deposition, but have you read the depositions? You can ask the newly elected members of the executive board who have not been seated yet, hey, have you actually asked to see the depositions, and have they been given to you? Maybe they've asked and have been denied access to the depositions. But have they even asked? Have they asked to see the reports that Jessica Cowell wrote regarding the conduct of James Freed? Because if you've read Jessica Cowell's reports and you've also read the depositions, it should be pretty clear, crystal clear, right? So I'm going to be releasing a multi-part expose on the James Freed versus ICMA lawsuit. I'm going to be putting it on citymanagernews.com website so that you guys can all check it out. You can see all the documents, and then you can make up your own mind. And you can look at those documents, and hopefully you will start asking the executive board member some tough questions. Because if you're holding the position that you're going to wait and see till how everything plays out in court, you're being intellectually lazy. And you're letting the executive board members off the hook and not holding them accountable. You can't do that, guys. You can't chicken out like that. Not as a CEO, not as a public sector executive, not as a chief executive officer. You don't get the luxury of being able to put your head in the sand and chicken out and not ask tough questions. Not when one of our own peers is being dragged through the mud by the organization that's supposedly out there to fight for the profession. So that's going to do it for me on this episode. I will tell you guys once again, the deadline to apply for the American Association of Municipal Executives as a founding member is July 15th. It's coming to a head. You need to get signed up today if you want to be a part of it. Stay tuned for next week. I plan to release part 1 of my expose on the James Freed versus ICMA lawsuit at citymanagernews.com. Catch you next time. I am Joe Turner. This is the City Manager Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. It is the most influential local government podcast in America. If you appreciate what I'm doing, if you like the content of the show, please hit that subscribe button, the follow button, and also leave a rating and review. Also, if you want to support the podcast, you want to make a donation, go to buymeacoffee.com/citymanagerunfiltered. Okay? Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.